I love sim racing, and since I love sim racing, I love Assetto Corsa. Now, there are a lot of people out there who are just, like, super sweaty when it comes to sim racing, and while I do enjoy, like, intense races or trying to lap faster, I also kind of just like to have fun. So since the early access release of Assetto Corsa EVO has been out for a couple months now, I've had the chance to drive each and every car included in the base game, and I want to make a definitive list of which car is the most fun to drive.
Guests arrive, 8:05 to 8:15, opening remarks.
Now, this is my opinion on which car is the most fun. Not like the fastest or the coolest looking or the best car, but just ranking them on how enjoyable they are to take around a lap. So don't, like, attack me in the comments if I say, like, a Lamborghini isn't fun to drive or something. Alright, so we have a pretty standard tier list here. S tier being the best, F tier being the worst, and then everything in the middle kind of ranking in between. We've got all the cars from the base game down below, and they're arranged alphabetically. So we're going to go through A to, I guess, V for the Volkswagen. We'll go A to V and just do it that way. I would like to preface this list by saying driving a manual is a lot more fun, in my opinion, than driving with paddles or an automatic or something like that. So a bunch of these cars are manual. If they are, it gets a little boost in my mind, but I'm not that kind of guy where I'm going to be like, oh, it's a manual, it's the best, you know, it's the best car, you don't drive a manual. I'm not like that, don't worry. But okay, starting off with the Abarth. This is a manual, which makes it a little bit more fun, but that's kind of the only thing it has going for it, I think. It's very slow, which I'm all for driving slow cars fast. I don't mind that at all. I think that's pretty fun. But this car kind of feels like driving a slow car slow. It's very heavy. It feels very heavy through the corners. It doesn't sound very good. And, yeah, it just feels a little bloated and slow. It doesn't sound... It's just, there's not really many redeeming qualities that would make me want to drive it again, besides the fact that it's a manual, so that's just not enough, you know? That can't carry you all the way up the list. So, unfortunately, not starting off strong, the Abarth is going to go into D tier. I don't really have a desire to drive this again. Next up, we've got the Alfa Romeo Giulia, GTAM or something. It's like the fancy trim of the Giulia. This car is a lot more fun to drive than that little Abarth. It's much faster. It feels very unpredictable, but in a good way. There's a lot of kind of body roll through the corners. The front suspension feels really soft under braking, so it kind of makes the car a little squirrely under braking. The rear end can kind of lift up. You can feel it physically in the car, which the physics for this car were done definitely really, really nicely. But yeah, it has that kind of built-in unpredictability, which kind of keeps you on your toes. I think it's a lot more entertaining to drive when you're just a little on edge the whole time, you know? So honestly, I think the Giulia is gonna go A tier. I honestly think it's really fast, it's fun to drive, it sounds really good. It's just an exciting car. So first one into A tier. So next we've got the Alfa Romeo Junior, which is an all-electric SUV. I'm not the biggest fan of electric cars, but I went into driving this one with an open mind. I can't say I've really driven it before until, you know, recording for this video, because electric cars are not really my thing. And I was immediately disappointed. Obviously, there's no sound. Just listen to this. Yeah, that sucks. This is not exciting at all. It handles, like, fine. The brakes don't feel super strong into, like, heavy braking zones, so you have to brake a little bit earlier than you think you have to. And that's kind of it. It's not exciting whatsoever. Within, like, half of a lap, I was already bored. Like, I was zoning out. So, to me, this is just, I'd never want to drive this again. F tier. Instant F tier. That thing, it sucks. So next we have the Alpine A110S. And just as a disclaimer, any of the cars that have like a top trim level, in terms of performance, I'm ranking them based on that level of performance. Not the base model, but kind of the upgraded, the beefier version. So for this Alpine, we are using the top trim level. I forget exactly what it's called. And this one is like just so middle of the road for me. It's like, it looks like it should be really fun and nimble and light, and you can throw it into corners and it'd be fun to drive around, but it's like, fine. It feels a little heavy at the front. The tires at the front end don't really feel like they grip properly. Maybe it's just a physics problem with the car, but I don't know. There's just something, you know. But yeah, it's fun, it's light, it's nimble, but it's just not really as much fun as you'd think it'd be for being like this kind of mid-size sports car, you know? I mean, am I making sense? I don't know. It's just like, it's middle of the road. We're gonna go put the Alpine in B tier. Yeah, well, yeah, that's fine. Now we've got the Alpine A290 Beta. And let me tell you, I felt like a beta driving this car. All electric, so that's strike number one. I mean, it's just so unexciting. It's kind of cool. You sit in the middle of the cabin, like you're in the middle of the car, like a McLaren F1. That's a cool little feature, but that's it. That's it. I mean, it looks kind of funky, but that's it. There's nothing exciting about it. I never want to drive this again. Like, it's just not, it's not fun. There's no sound, which sucks. It handles actually quite nicely, but it's just almost so stable and silent and easy to drive. It feels, it's just boring. There's just not, it's just not really, it's just not fun, you know? This is a fun list. This car is not fun, so this is going F tier. These two electric ones suck. And listen, I get it. Like, I know, you know, I don't mean to be an electric car hater guy. I kind of do hate electric cars a little bit, but these two just aren't fun. It's just, there's no sound, there's no shifting, there's no, ugh, you know? Moving on, we've got the Audi RS3 Sportback. So since it's like like a wagon hatchback crossover kind of thing, it's a little bit of a heavier car. So you can kind of feel that through corners on pretty much every track. But other than that, it's a really fun car to drive. It's definitely fast. And it sounds really exciting. Like, the engine has such a great tone to it. Upshift sound really nice. Downshift sound even better. The shifting is really crisp. It feels really torquey. It's fast. It's fun. It's loud. It's definitely a fun, like, kind of exciting car to drive. It feels really stable. You don't really get that unpredictability mixed in, but it's definitely fun to drive. So I think this one is going to A tier as well. I don't think it's quite as good as the Alpha, but it's up there. So now we've got the BMW M2 Racing. Hold on. The BMW M2 CS Racing. I apologize. This one is weird. It's really weird. It's like a cool race car, but it's boring. I don't really know. It's incredibly easy to drive. It's super stable. It's super responsive. Like, turning into a corner, it's just like instant. There's just instant traction, instant downforce, but it just feels kind of slow, like a little sluggish out of corners. Like, you put the power down and you gotta kind of just wait for the RPMs to get up there. So it's not like the most exhilarating car to drive. It's definitely easy to drive, but that doesn't make it fun. You know what I mean? And again, I love driving slow cars fast, but this car looks and feels like it should be a fast car, but it's slow. So it's kind of the opposite of that. And again, it's really lovely to drive, but it's just, to me, yeah, you know, nah. I feel like it'd be fun racing against a bunch of other one of these, like, you know, 20 other M2s would be a lot of fun. But just to take around the lap, meh, you know, it's just not doing it. So another BMW now, we've got the M4 CSL, and this one is a lot more fun than the M2. It's super unpredictable. It sounds crazy. It's super fast. It's just wild. It's like, it's very powerful and unpredictable, but it's like just on the border of, like, you're still in control, but you're just on the edge of, like, oh, I might shit myself. What? It definitely feels really fast. Like, there's a much higher sense of speed, which, I mean, I get some cars in video games, it's just not there, and it depends on a lot of factors, but you get a really good sense of speed in this car. Like, you really feel like you're flying around a lap. There are tracks in this car that are, it's almost a little too unpredictable to really make it around a lap, but especially around Imola, this thing is like, it's really nice. It's just super fun. It's unpredictable, keeps you on your toes. It's good. It's a fun car. So yeah, honestly, dude, I think this is the first S tier. I think it's the first S tier edition for sure. This one, the M4 is a lot of fun. All right, next up, we've got the Camaro ZL1. And let me tell you something. I'm American, but don't let that fool you, okay? I don't really like American cars. I like the classics. I like the old stuff. Don't get me wrong. Those are, you know, they're sweet. But the new stuff sucks. It's like, you know, Ford puts a shitty sounding V6 into like a plastic tub, and that's the new Mustang. Like, they just suck, you know? But this thing is instant S tier. Actually, let me put it in front of the M4. Instant S tier. It sounds insane. It's a manual. It's wildly unpredictable. The gear ratios feel really short, so you're shifting all the time. It's like a total blast. It's very easy to spin out or crash or whatever, but like, this car is fun. It's super loud. It's obnoxious. It's crazy. It feels like trying to like tame a wild animal. Like, there's just so much power. It's just so overkill. It's good. Like, this is a really fun car. I honestly didn't really drive this many times, like, when Assetto Corsa Evo first came out, because I was like, it's a Camaro. I don't really, no interest. It's just like, ugh. But it's sick. It's fun. It's super fun. So, S tier, like, it's really good. So next up, we've got the Ferraris. We've got the Ferrari 296 GTB. Beautiful looking car. Sounds great. The shifts are super clean. They sound fantastic. It's insanely fast. Should be a lot of fun, right? Wrong. You're wrong, actually, if you thought that. The brakes are god-awful. For some reason, it feels like they built this beautiful machine and they took the brakes off of like a 2011 Prius C with 300,000 miles on it and just slapped them on there. I don't know what it is with this car. You just cannot get slowed down enough for any corner. Every corner I go into, it feels like I'm braking on the correct mark, and I just zoom past the corner. Like, I overshoot the corner every time, and it's every corner on every lap. I don't know what it is. I've tweaked like my brake settings on my actual brake pedals. I've tweaked, the car settings in like the in-game tuning menus. I just can't get it to work. I don't know what it is. It's a shame because this car is definitely cool. It's very fun to drive, but it's just like, it's not enjoyable when every corner you're terrified that you're gonna like slide into a wall. So unfortunately, I know that seems kind of crazy. It's the same as the Abarth. It's D tier. I know. Sue me. Next Ferrari now, we've got the 488 Challenge EVO. So this is like a GT3 kind of style car. Completely polar opposite. The brakes are almost too good. Like, the brakes are insane on this car. It's actually crazy. It's very stable. It's fun to drive. It's fast. It sounds cool. The interior view is really cool. Like the cockpit, you get that cool racing steering wheel and everything. It's sick. It's a fun car to drive. It's super stable. It does feel a little understeery through like the back end of corners sometimes. I don't know exactly what that is. It could be kind of a setup related thing. For most of these also, I'm just running the default setup, so this is just a plain, this is just how the car comes. So it does feel a little understeery. You could definitely tweak that with suspension and stuff on the back end through like the tuning menu. But overall, very fun car to drive. Super stable, very predictable. To me, it's B tier because of that. It's definitely a fast car. It's cool. It's fun. It's a race car. But there's stuff out there that's more fun to drive. So next we've got the Ford Escort Cosworth. And this one is meh, It's a little sluggish. I mean, it's a manual, so you get the manual bonus, which is more fun, but the gear ratios feel kind of long, so you're not really shifting that much. It's just really slow out of corners. Again, driving a slow car fast is fun, but this just doesn't really feel like that. It's just like lacking something. A little oomph, It's oomph. It needs oomph. But yeah, it's like, it's fun because it's a manual. It doesn't sound good. There's just better stuff to drive out there, so it's going C. It's like, it's below mid, but it's not bad, There's nothing bad about the car, but it's just, there's not much there. Honda S2000, instant S tier. Instant S tier. This car is the epitome of driving a slow car fast. Anytime I've said that throughout this video, I'm thinking of the S2000. This is exactly what I mean when I say that. It's a manual, the gear ratios feel perfect, the engine sounds good, you just feel fast when you're driving it, even though you're not going that fast. You can throw it into corners, the rear end will kick out, like you can very easily drift this thing without using a handbrake, just by using kind of body roll and weight transfers and stuff like that. It's super fun to pretty much do anything you want to set out to do on a track. Racing it is super fun. Just hot lapping is super fun. It's just a blast. It's a really fun car to drive. Something that's also really good about the S2000 is the speed. It's like just fast enough where you feel like you're going fast, and it's also not too fast where you feel like out of control or something like that Camaro. Like, it's literally just a perfect happy medium of fun to drive. I think I'm gonna put it actually before the M4. It's right after the Camaro. The Camaro is just absolute insanity, so it's a lot of fun. But the S2000 is like a perfectly balanced, fun, relaxing, chill car. Hyundai i30. Drab. It's drab. There's just not really anything exciting about this car. It's slow, which again, I don't mind a slow car. It's just, there's just nothing, there's just nothing that makes me want to drive it again, It doesn't sound good, it isn't very fast, it's very predictable and stable, which again is a good thing, but it's just like, that doesn't make the car exciting, so it's just kind of boring. There's just not really much going for it, It's just meh. Yeah, there's just no redeeming qualities that would make me want to drive this. This is D tier. D tier for the Hyundai. Kicking it up a notch, Lambo, the Huracan, A tier. Very fun car to drive. It's fast, it's loud. The like you scream at high RPMs. The brakes are really good. It's very stable and predictable. Like you feel really confident driving the car, but it's in such a good way. Like I like that unpredictability, but this, it just drives really well. It's really fun to drive. Yeah, it's just, it sounds sick. It looks cool. It's fun. Like it kind of has all those factors of like, I want this in a supercar. I want to take it around a track. I want to go fast. That's exactly what you get from this, and it's literally done perfectly. It's like the physics for this car are so nice. On to the Lancia. We have the Delta Integrale. I love Lancia. It's one of my favorite brands. They have such a rich history in motorsport. You know, Group B Rally, Lancia was like the king. They're so cool. This is one of my favorite cars ever. I really want to buy one of these someday, but it just... you know, it pains me to say it, but it's just bleh. It's just bleh. It's slow, which again, I don't mind a slow car, but it's just it's boring. It's just not fun to drive. The gear ratios are really long. It is a manual, which is like, you know, the added bonus, but it's just, you're stuck in like third and fourth gear the whole time. The gear ratios are really long. You never really get down to second or go up to fifth. So it kind of takes the fun out of driving a manual. It sounds like okay. It handles fine. It's just very sluggish out of corners. It doesn't feel exciting. It feels like there's so many aspects of this car that if there were just a little more, it would be really exciting to drive. And it's just not there, which is, it pains me to say it, but Lancia's C tier. It's just not, it's just like the Ford. It's just, it needs a little more something, you know? On to the Lotus Emira. These cars are, in my opinion, like stunningly beautiful. I think this is one of the best looking cars to come out in recent memory. They look great. I actually saw one on the highway the other day and I like snapped my neck to the left to get a look at it. But in regards to Assetto Corsa, this is an incredibly fun car to drive. There's two different versions. There's the sport version with the paddle shifters and the touring version with the manual transmission as well. So obviously it gets that little manual bonus, but in terms of speed, it is sat right between that Camaro and the S2000. So if the S2000 is a little bit slow, you want something a little faster, a little more punch, and you still want to drive a manual, the Emira is literally a perfect, you know, next step up. If you're driving the Camaro and you're like, it's a little too crazy, but I like driving the manual, the Emira is the perfect step down. It's like such a good medium between the two. It's really balanced. It has punch. It's fun to drive. The gear ratios feel really good. It's just a fun car. It doesn't sound all that great. Like that 6-cylinder engine doesn't produce like the best sound. It's just kind of blah, like middle of the road, but otherwise it's a lot of fun. Every time I get into Assetto Corsa Evo, this is the first car I drive, so it's S tier right between those two cars. It's really a blast. All right, now we have the iconic Mazda Miata Cup car. These things are basically weightless. They have a crazy 4-cylinder engine that screams at high RPMs. It's fun, it's zippy, it's punchy, it's light, it's a manual transmission. These things are a blast. Some of the most fun you can have in sim racing across any game, any category of racing, anything, is a Miata Cup race. Like, it is insane. It's always insane. There's people going 4 wide into corners. There's people spinning out. There's crashes. There's people flipping over. It's super loud. It's just always fun. It's by far the most fun you can have. So I'm going to put the Miata at the bottom of S tier. And the reason it's at the bottom is because that appeal for the Miata lies within the racing. As soon as you take this on track and you're hot lapping, you immediately just start to miss the other Miatas. Like, you start to miss the chaos unfolding around you and you just want to race it. So it's not as entertaining to drive on a hot lap. It is still definitely a lot of fun, but I think the S2000 kind of does what the Miata does a little bit better when you're just considering hot lapping around a track by yourself. It's a little more fun to drive the S2000 because it's a little more punchy and it's also a manual. It's also light. The rear end will kick out. So the S2000 just does it slightly better than the Miata, but obviously those Miata Cup races are iconic. So it has to be S tier. So now we have the Mercedes AMG GT2, and this car, upon looking at it, seems like it's just a standard car from ACC or something. It seems like it wouldn't really be out of the ordinary. It would handle the same, it would sound the same, blah, blah, blah. You would be incorrect in thinking that. This car feels much more unpredictable than that kind of standard, very stable base of a GT3 car from, you know, Assetto Corsa Competizione. This is like a much more wildly unpredictable car, but it keeps you just barely in control. Like, it keeps you on your toes. Through corners, the rear end feels like it'll snap out. The upshifts sound like gunshots. You know, braking, it feels like you're just gonna get slowed down right as you hit the corner. Like, it's a fun car to drive. So this one is going probably mid A tier. It's definitely a lot of fun. It has that unpredictability aspect to it. And it's just, it sounds good, it's cool, it's fun. It's a fun car, you know? Moving on to the Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car. This is just an objectively cool car. It's fun, it's loud, it's fast. You can hear the transmission whining. It's just like, it's a purpose-built race car. It's kind of hard to like not have fun driving something as crazy as this. In terms of other GT cars as well, since it's rear engine, it handles very uniquely compared to all these other front engine cars. So it's like a fun experience to get behind the wheel of one of these things and drive it around a lap. Whether you're racing or hot lapping, like, it's just a fun car. However, I have one issue with this car specifically in this game. In other games, I don't have this issue. I can't brake for shit with this. It locks up like 2 or 3 times per lap. I don't know why. It's just really difficult to brake. And I know how to brake. I know how to trail brake. It's just something wrong with this car. I don't know what it is. It's probably driver error. I mean, I've screwed with the tuning menu. I've screwed with my settings on my brakes. Even at like 40% brake pressure, it'll lock into a corner. I don't know why that's happening. It's unfortunate. It's going D tier. I know that's insane, but I have to do it. I don't have fun driving it because of that issue. So, personal preference. I'm sure that's different for people watching this, but, you know, it's my video, so. The Toyota GT86 is B tier, bottom of B tier. It is a manual, which is fun. You get that little bonus. It's more fun than you think it would be. I've never really been into these cars like the BRZ or the GT86 or anything. They've never really stuck out to me, so the first time I drove this, I was like, it'll be all right. But the manual is fun. It does handle quite nicely. It's not as fun as something like the S2000, hence why it's in B tier, but it is surprisingly fun. Like, it's definitely a lot more fun than that Ford Cosworth or the Lancia, as much as it's painful to say that. But it's a fun car, like, objectively. So, yeah, pretty simple description for this one, but it's just fun, middle of the road, manual, can't really go wrong. Our final car of the list, the Volkswagen Golf GTI Club Sport. There's a bunch of different trim levels for this car, and this is the top trim level that we're talking about here. This car, every time you drive it, is surprisingly a lot more fun than you think it would be. It sounds really great. It handles nicely. The physics feel really good. Like, the body roll feels very natural. It's punchy. You know, the upshifts and downshifts are really crisp. It just handles really nicely. It's similar to, I know this is a crazy comparison, but it handles similar to the Lamborghini. It feels very stable but fun. Sometimes when a car feels overly stable or predictable, it can be a little bit of a drag. Like, it can be a little bit boring to drive. This is not the case whatsoever. It also feels much faster than it looks when you're driving, which is a very good indicator that you're, you know, driving a fun car, like you're having a good time. So I think I'm gonna put it very top of B tier here, because it's not as fun as the RS3, it's not as fun as the Huracan, but it is a really fun car to drive. So yeah, so I think this is a good list. I mean, there's more in S tier than anything else, but I think D tier I'll catch a little bit of flack, be a little controversial with this one, with the 992 and the Ferrari being so low. But, you know, that's my opinion. You can make your own video too. You can we can have a discussion. You can join my Discord. You can talk about it, share your opinion. You can call me stupid if you want, but yeah, I think this is a pretty good list of, in terms of just fun to drive, enjoyable experience, a smile on my face. This seems like a good order, from the Camaro all the way down to this electric car. That seems like a good order. So yeah, that's that. Subscribe.